guys, this is Mishel, Deception Bytes. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting really tired of the Tide Pod generation lecturing me and you about gun control. These are people that aren't even out of high school yet, and yet they're being touted as the experts on gun control. And, I'm sure they came up with all of this on their own. I'm sure that they had no coaching from anybody, right? I mean, it just sounds like it's coming right straight from them. Yeah, and this is the generation that they want to force Tide to remanufacture their pods to look less yummy. Yeah. And are these the people we want deciding on whether or not we can have guns? Are you kidding me? Well, you know what? I think we need to start fighting back with statistics, because the statistics are for us, not against us. And by us, I mean the people that are for the Second Amendment. Obviously that Second Amendment was put there for a reason, and it was because the Founding Fathers foresaw a day when we might need to have our guns to defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. Yeah. So let's just, let's take a look at some facts and try to counter this with facts. Now, this is a very good website. It's called AmericaGunFacts.com. How are guns being used by citizens? Well, here we have the homicide plus accident plus suicide is this little darkened gun right here. You see all these guns? Yeah, those are the ones that are being used for self-defense. And one of these guns equals 31,672 incidents. Yeah. Every year, guns are used over 80 times more often to protect a life than to take one. 270 million approximate number of civilian firearms in America. 200,000 times a year women use a gun to defend against sexual abuse. 200,000. 3 in 5 pulled felons say they won't mess with an armed victim. Of course. Why would they? Now let's look at this. Gun ownership versus crime. An international perspective. Highest gun ownership rate per 100 residents. Number 1 is the USA, 88.8 per 100 residents. So out of every 100 residents, 88.8 of them own a gun. Number 2, Yemen, 54.8 of them out of every 100 own a gun. Number 3, Switzerland, 45.7 out of 100 residents own guns. Number 4, Finland, 45.3 out of every 100 residents own a gun. Now let's look at the homicide rate. Now, according to the liberal agenda, we would expect to see the gun rate be the homicide rate to be number 1 in the United States, right? Well, wouldn't we? Isn't that what the liberals are telling us? Isn't that what the Tide Pod kids are telling us? No, actually, that's not the case at all. Because if we look over here, the highest international homicide rate is in Honduras. Yep. The homicide rate is 91.6 per 100,000 residents. Number 2 is El Salvador, and with the highest homicide rate, 69.2 out of every 100,000. I'm not even sure where that is, to tell you the truth, but it's 56.9 homicides per 100,000 residents, and then Jamaica, of course. I've been to Jamaica. I won't go back. I love it. It's a beautiful country, but it's very violent. 52.2 homicides out of every 100,000 residents. Isn't that odd how the United States, that has the most guns, you'd expect them to be first, but they're not. They're not. A recent study published in the Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy concluded that there is a negative correlation between gun ownership and violent crime in countries internationally. More guns equals less crime. Now, the liberals are going to try and tell us that more guns, more crime. Oh, take the guns, take the guns. Evil guns, evil. Nations with strict gun control laws have substantially higher murder rates than those who do not in general. In fact, the 9 European nations with the lowest gun ownership rate have a combined murder rate 3 times that of the 9 European nations with the highest gun ownership rate. Don't tell the liberals. Don't tell them. Oh, and in terms of homicide, the United States has 4.8 murders per 100,000. And we're number 103. And yet we have the most guns. Boy, something's wrong here, isn't it? I mean, the everything we're hearing on TV, boy, that just doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, this counters everything we're hearing. United Kingdom case study. Most violent country in the EU. It's absolutely illegal to possess a handgun, okay? Yet, there's 2,034 violent crimes per 100,000 people in the UK versus the good old USA, which of course has the the top amount of gun ownership, only has 466 violent crimes per 100,000 people. But wait a minute. They told us that if they banned guns and they took our guns away, that we'd be safer, that our babies wouldn't be killed. Isn't that what they're telling us? Well, why didn't this work for the United Kingdom? What's going on? I mean, if I didn't know better, it would look like crime actually, increased. Don't tell the liberals. In the decade following the Labour Party's election and banning of handguns in 1997, the number of recorded violent attacks soared by 77% to 1.2 million in 2007, or more than 2 attacks every minute. Kitchen knives are being used in as many as half of all stabbings in the United Kingdom and has prompted a group of doctors to call for a ban on long-pointed kitchen knives. Right. So, after they take our guns away, what are they going to come for our kitchen knives? Are they going to start banning cars because there's too many accidents on the road? I mean, my gosh, I can't remember the statistics, but if you look it up, there's people that die every year falling off their toilet. Should we ban toilets? It's ridiculous. Concealed carry in America. An analysis of the FBI crime statistics found that states that adopted concealed carry laws reduced 8.5% of murders, 5% of rapes, 7% of aggregated assaults, 3% robberies. Oh, but wait, that's not what I heard from the Tide Pod kids. That's not what they're saying. How can this be? Because, I mean, the crime should go up, right? I mean, there should be more babies killed. According to them, we've got to save our babies. Oh. With just one exception, every public mass shooting in the United States since 1950 has taken place where citizens are banned from carrying guns, including school shootings. Despite strict gun regulations, Europe has had 3 of the worst 6 school shootings. Yeah. And here's something else. The school shooting, the day that the school shooting happened, and you know which one we're talking about, there was a drill going on. There were all sorts of law enforcement there. Don't you think that should have been the safest place in the world? Because there was a drill happening at the exact same time. Should have been the safest place at that point. Had all those law enforcement people there. And yet, a former student chooses that exact moment in time to come in and start shooting. Odd, isn't it? Very, very odd. So, let's look at the police department versus an armed citizen. And I am all for the police. I know that there are bad police, just like there are bad people in any profession, but they can't be everywhere at once. So let's take a look at this. And, you know, if someone's breaking in your house and you have to wait for the police to get there, I mean, I'm not blaming that on police. There's only so many. And, you know, it takes some time. So wouldn't you rather have a gun in your house that you can defend yourself against an intruder that might be wanting to do you harm? Because let's look at these statistics. Police, 794,300 total police officers with guns, compared to 80 million gun-owning citizens. The error rate for a police shooting is 11%. The error rate for armed citizens is 2%. 14.3 is the average deaths of a shooting rampage stopped by police. So this is a shooting rampage that's going on and police stop it. The average amount of deaths will be 14.3. Now, if a citizen stops it, an armed citizen, the average deaths of a shooting rampage will be 2.3. Criminals killed each year by police, 606. Criminals killed each year by armed citizens. Now these are criminals, not innocent people. 1,527. In 1982, Kennesaw, Georgia passed, and I think that's how you pronounce it. Forgive me if I've pronounced it incorrectly. Georgia passed a law requiring heads of household to keep at least one firearm in the house. The residential burglary rate subsequently dropped 89% in Kennesaw compared to just 10.4% drop in Georgia as a whole. 89%. Now, if you were a burglar, which I pray that you're not, and you wanted to break into somebody's house, would you choose a house that you absolutely knew they had a weapon? Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm no burglar, but I wouldn't if I was. So, today, the violent crime rate in Kennesaw is still 85% lower than Georgia's or the national average. Wow. I don't know. It's not what the Tide Pod kids said. I'm just saying. Now, I want to show you a few other things. Now, I know that some people will be saying, yeah, but look at all the people that are dying in mass shootings. Well, let's take a look at that. Deaths in America. This is deaths in America, the blue on the left here, 99.4. Now, the number of murders in America compared to the amount of other causes of death, okay? So this is death, like death by all causes. whether it's cancer, whether it's old, just passing away from old age, whatever. 99.4 compared to 0.6%. Only 0.6% of all deaths in America are caused by murder. Okay? Now, of that, okay, of those murders, those 0.6% murders, only 0.2% are murdered in mass shootings. 0.2%. It's not what the Tide Pod kid said. I'm just saying. The dude with the FBI dad, that's not what he said. Don't tell the liberals. So let's look at some more statistics. August 2000, JAMA reported that states implementing waiting periods and background checks did not experience reductions in homicide rates or overall suicide rates. What? That can't be right. In 1990s, the number of guns in this country increased by roughly 40 million, even while the murder rate decreased by almost 40%. Accidental gun deaths in the home decreased by almost 40% as well. As many as 1.5 million cases of self-defense with a firearm each year. Decreased by 40% as well, as many as 1.5 million cases of self-defense with a firearm each year decreased. According to the BBC News, handgun crime in the United Kingdom rose by 40% in the 2 years after it's passed its draconian gun ban in 2000. Report shows that the crime rate in England is higher than the crime rates of 16 other industrialized nations, including the United States. Guns are used 2.5 million times a year in self-defense. So, what's going to happen to all those people? What's going to happen to those people that are defending themselves? They're not going to be able to defend themselves anymore. But you say, but there won't be guns to shoot them with. Won't there? You think if they have a gun ban that the criminals are going to turn their guns in? No, it's the law-abiding citizens that will turn their guns in. There'll still be guns. Guns are banned in Canada, but there's guns here. Lots of guns here. And the other thing, I worked for the police in Canada when I was younger, and let me tell you, they find ways to murder each other. So the statistics just don't, corroborate with what the Tide Pod kids are saying. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't be calling them that, but it's like, I'm sorry, this generation, why should I listen to a young child that doesn't even have a high school education yet? And why should I listen to them when it's obvious that someone is putting the words in their mouths? Just saying. And they say, but they've been through something traumatic. Well, you know what? I've had a gun shot at me too. It missed me. They were trying to shoot me in the head. But I'm still for gun control. I'm against gun control. I'm for guns. I'm for the Second Amendment. It's there for a reason. The Founding Fathers put it there for a reason. Of course, I didn't stick around long enough for them to try it again. But anyway, now let's look at this. Honduras, population 8.2 million. Now, I've been to Honduras 2 or 3 times, and I think it's gotten a lot more violent than when I was there, because when I was there it was bad, but not as bad as I've heard that it is now. Population 8.2 million. Bans citizens from owning guns. Highest homicide rate in the entire world. How do you explain that? Seriously, how do they explain that? How can you explain that? Switzerland, population 8.2 million. requires citizens to own guns. Lowest homicide rate in the entire world. Okay, something's not computing there, is it? Something's not adding up. I mean, why are we being told the exact opposite? Why are they trying to pull on our heartstrings with the images of scared kids? And look, I'm not discounting any of that. I don't know what happened there, but I certainly don't want to see children, harmed in any way. However, if there were armed guards in the school, it would prevent that. Or arm the teachers, allow the teachers to carry weapons. My gosh, I would not want to teach in the public schools, any of the public schools or high schools in America. You're not safe. I'd feel much safer with a gun. And I'm sure the class would too, knowing that there was someone armed there. I'm just saying. So, let's look at this. Violent crimes per 100,000 people. Britain, 2,034 for every 100,000 people. I didn't realize it was that bad in Britain, and I've never been. I really want to go, but I had no idea. But the United States is just 466. And yet, you guys, obviously, you guys in the States don't hear Canadian media, and you don't get to talk to Canadians, and I'm hoping to be back in the States soon. But I'm here temporarily because I have an elderly mother. But to hear people talk here, they'll say, why do you want to go back to the States? And I said, well, it's my home. Well, but, it's so violent there. It's so violent there. It's not. It's not. Sure, there's some violence there, and I've lived in some cities where, okay, yeah, I was afraid in certain areas, but my gosh, look at Britain. 2,034 per 100,000 people. No. And yet, here in the media, they do sow that fear into people of the United States. It's so violent, and it's because they have guns. So anyway, that's my feelings. And the last thing that I want to bring up is this. Gun Control Hall of Fame. Well, here we have Stalin. He took guns away from his citizens in 1929, then murdered 20 million of them once they were defenseless. And there's Pol Pot there. He took guns away from his citizens in 1956, then murdered 2 million of them once they were defenseless. And then we have Hitler. Everybody's heard of Hitler. Took guns away from his citizens in 1938, then murdered 13 million of them once they were defenseless. Oh, and then Mao Zedong took guns away from his citizens in 1935, then murdered 20 million of them once defenseless. Yeah, the founding fathers put that in the Constitution for a reason. They foresaw a day when we might need that, and it needs to stay there. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not going to be talking about the shooting. I have decided against it because it seems that everybody that is saying anything is being banned. And once I'm banned, then I can't say anything about anything. So I'm going to hold off on that for now. I'm hoping that things are going to change with the censorship that's happening. But for now, I'm going to have to work around that. So anyway, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you all, and I ask that you would subscribe if you want to be subscribed, and that you keep checking to make sure that you're still subscribed, because they are unsubscribing or desubscribing people. So I appreciate you all, and thank you so much.